Good morning, YouTubers, subscribers, and friends and like. It's Grant coming at you from Wamsutter, Wyoming. Welcome to the run from hell. Not necessarily the truck from hell, but kind of the run from hell. Picked this up in St. Joseph, Missouri, after I dropped a different one off in Kansas. Mostly because it was closer to go here to St. Joseph, Missouri at 160 miles, I think it was, from Salina, Kansas, than it would be to go all the way back to Chicago to get something, etc. So I picked this up. It's a diesel. You can see by the def right there, if you want, the diesel cap and the def. Probably one in every 3 diesels that you take in the first 200 or 300 miles before their first regen has issues. Has the light coming on and off, and it does its own thing up front, and it's doing its diagnostics. And you really have to get past the first 200 or 300 miles before you can call it in and be like, okay, this thing has a problem. And I've learned that from experience, because once it gets to the point where it can actually do its regen, then it sorts things out, and the light went off, it quit making funny noises, and I was good to go. But when I picked it up, it had 67 miles. That all happened to about the 300 mile mark, so 240-ish miles in is when it finally got around to doing its first regen. And then because you have to drive it continuously, and I knew that, so I had to drive a good 2 hours continuously instead of taking a break or anything, just to force it to do a driving regen. And it got past that point from St. Joseph, Missouri, up to about Nebraska City, Nebraska, where it finally got the thing, or past that to about Lincoln, Nebraska, where it finally got it to work. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll be good to go then. That was the first night. The starting day after the 10-hour break I had to take, I'm driving through middle Nebraska at Gothenburg, Nebraska. And at first I thought it was rocks from a semi passing me, because I was doing 60 mile an hour and the speed limit there is about 75. At first I thought it'd be rocks coming off a semi that was hitting me, because it's daylight like this, normal, with a little bit of clouds and some drizzle and rain every now and then, off and on. I didn't really think nothing of it, because it's just like pretty much this with some clouds. But then I realized it was hailing, because the truck went by and the rocks are still happening. So I immediately got off the interstate right at Gothenburg, Nebraska, down that exit ramp and across the street into that gas station overhang to try to protect us from the hail. And just as I got into underneath that overhang, it really started hailing then. So I think I protected the glass from getting dents and from getting broke. But the vehicle itself got a bunch of dents. I don't know if you can really see it or not. There's various different dents in different spots. So I got stuck in Gothenburg, Nebraska for a couple hours with my claims department and Altex claim department, trying to figure out what to do with it. This one is going from St. Joseph, Missouri, 1,325 miles up to Meridian, Idaho. But now, because of the hail and everything, we decided to still take it to the Rush Truck Center up in Boise for them to do the body work on it now, since it has dents and stuff in different spots. But I still get the same amount of miles of the deal, and then the people I was going to deliver it to can come across town basically and pick it up. So that's what happened yesterday in the middle of the day, and I'm thinking, okay, things happen, Mother Nature happened, whatever, we got past that. I go to sleep just south of Wamsutter, Wyoming, after having drove all day long, because that was the other thing, as I was going to take my time a little more, because I could have. This is a restock thingy for Altec to the customer. They didn't really need it till next week, but then now that this happened with the hail dents, now I got to drive direct, because the body shop does want it by at least Thursday morning to be able to look at it. So now I'm on a more direct route because of that. But so instead of driving a little bit that day and going a little bit the next day and so on until Friday, I ended up driving the 500 and something miles yesterday, and I got to do another, I think, 544 today or something to make up the difference of it. But anyway, I wouldn't say I was exhausted, but I was kind of tired, and I pulled into the state shed, highway maintenance shed type of exit, just south of, or just, I wouldn't say south, just east, I guess, of Wamsutter, because I'm going west. I pulled in there. There was a semi there across the street, and I figured I'd just pull up there by the shed, the state shed, overnight, and when it got daylight, I'd leave. I go to sleep, and there's a road that goes between where they say this is a state shed, that's the semi off ramp and the on ramp, and there's a road that goes in between. Truck came by slowly a couple times, pickup truck, a couple times, and didn't really think nothing of it. Half an hour later, when I'm dead asleep, I hear the sound of footprints and the sound of an engine of a truck first, and then the sound of footprints. And what they had done is back their truck up to this truck, and they would get the footprints I was hearing. And of course, you feel it when somebody gets in there and he wobbles against the suspension of the truck. But two Mexicans had tried to come up, back their pickup up in with mine, and try to steal that. And that doesn't look very heavy. I would have figured it'd be like 100 pounds. Don't come to find out, it's a hell of a lot heavier than that. But anyway, that's happening. My first thought is to protect the rig. I do have a gun, but my first thought was to protect the rig and get it out of there. So I jumped from the back seat into the driver's seat, turned the truck up, went on, and as I'm turning the truck on, I'm looking in the rear mirror, and that's when I realized what they're trying to do is try to take that, and because they had it unstrapped from the pickup strap, and they had it about halfway up, and they're trying to shove it into their pickup. And the one guy was still on the ground, coming from where the strap loosens up on that side, taking the straps off on the outsides of the pickup. The other guy was in there trying to start wiggling it this way. So he was between it and the cab. I went about 3 or 4 feet up and then slammed the brakes as hard as I could, thinking that thing is 100 pounds or whatever. You didn't teach him a lesson, you know, that thing go running at India, you'll never do it again kind of deal, right? Come to find out, that thing is a hell of a lot heavier than I thought it was. And in a way, it's a good thing that happened, because now I'm going to be paying attention to that strap a hell of a lot more than I was. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was checking it every time I do my pre-trip and post-trip, and every time I stop at the brake and whatever, I was checking it because they got it strapped down. But I was under the failed impression that it's only 100 pounds. That thing must be at least like 600 pounds or something, because the only thing I can really relate it to is when I was growing up on the ranch. When a calf gets to be 600 pounds or more, it's too hard to handle for one person to do anything with. And that's pretty much where that's at, weight-wise. So my guess is it's somewhere around 600 pound mark. Anyway, that deal, I stopped hard enough that deal, pallet and all, flipped over because it was still attached to the pallet. They thankfully did not tear out the metal bindings, or whatever you want to call those things, those other metal straps that bind it to the pallet. The good thing they didn't cut that off, because that would have left me up Schitt's Creek on having to transport it. I think they're just about in the process of doing it. I think he was bending over to do just that and take it off the pallet so that it would be easier for him to push it into their truck right when I hit the brakes. Well, when I went forward and then hit the brakes hard. And anyway, the whole deal flips over on top of him. He's all screaming all sorts of Spanish because the guy don't even speak English. His buddy, of course, when my truck started up and went, and his buddy got in his truck and left. Just left him there. I don't think either one of them knew my truck was occupied, which is weird. They didn't think to look, or maybe they didn't see me in there because of the decals on the side windows or something. You know, not that I want to be a criminal or anything, but one of the first things I would have went to go check is see if anybody's in this thing before I go messing with stuff. But maybe they couldn't see me underneath my sleeping bag with the decal hidden at it behind there. I don't know. Not sure, because I was asleep, like I say, for half an hour before that happened. Anyway, his buddy leaves, and the pickup, of course, just ditches his ass, because that's the criminal code thing to do. You know, you're on your own, buddy, you screwed up. Kind of deal. I get out of the car, got my gun on my side, of course, because I don't know what's going to happen next. And then I realized, you know, that guy's far out of the game now anyway, because he's got that thing on top of him. And the way he's screaming, I'm like, oh, something, you know, worse than 100 pounds happened to him. Anyway, my first thought would be to just leave him like that all night long, you know, because, you know, hate to say it, but, you know, that would be my first thought, you know, because the thief gets what a thief gets. But, you know, in order to not get in trouble myself, I called it into the law to help me get that thing off of him, so he didn't die on my truck and whatnot, because that would have been 10 times worse. Nothing else would have really held me up. Probably would have got fired, the whole works. Anyway, cops show up. 3 of your Sweetwater County deputies showed up, and then the ambulance showed up. The 2 of the deputies helped me get that thing off of him, and it took all 3 of us to get that thing up and back on the pallet. And one of them wanted to cut the metal bandings off, and I said, if you do that, I'm going to be screwed. There's no way I'm going to be able to transport that without damaging it. That's why they have it up on the pallet. And we were able to flip the pallet back over and get it back in position where it's at. And they took the guy off into down and off into the ambulance. He kept saying, Hanya Depute, I think is how he was saying it over and over. I don't know, he's saying it really fast, so I'm not sure if I'm saying that right or not. But you Spanish-speaking people out there will get a laugh of that. Hanya Depute, which I had to look that up, means son of a bitch in Spanish. He kept saying, son of a bitch, help. So he would say, Heine, put the help, Heine, put the help. Like that, like fast. I can't even say it fast. It's a tongue twister for me, but that's what he was saying last night. Heine, put the help. Or something like that. I'm probably butchering that, but... So you wouldn't think that little thing right there would be any more than 100 pounds. I wouldn't. Any normal person wouldn't. But come to find out, it was. I mean, like I said before, it's a good thing I found that out. Oh, by the way, past that auto gate right there is private property, I'm pretty sure. This is a public road coming from the Loves. Anyhow, I've been checking that all the time. Because you don't want that thing to move, and it looks as small as it is, you would think that's not no 600 pounds or whatever. You know? Apparently it is, because it reminds me of an anvil or something. I don't know, that thing is heavy. But anyhow, they got it off him. He went to the ambulance. I had to wait around till just now, about half an hour ago. That detective, I guess this morning's detective, called me. Asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said the only way I would want to press charges is if it doesn't involve me from that point on anymore, because it's going to cost me so much time and money to come back to Wyoming for court that it ain't worth my time to do it. You know, he didn't damage anything as far as I could tell. I got out on the better end of the deal than they did. So in my opinion, you know, write it off as justice, certain, you know, justice had as justice served, or they call it. Because, you know, I'm sure that thing felt good laying on it. He said he was going to turn it over to the DA and let the DA decide what they want to do on their end if I'm not going to press charges. I said, I'm not going to spend the money it takes to come all the way back to Wyoming, time or 2 or 3 times just to get the guy tried on the trial or whatever. I don't want to do none of that. To me, that would be more time and money than it's worth for me, because I'm not a Wyoming resident. If I was a local here and it's doing my own business or something and it happened, then I would. But being that I'm transporting in this situation, since no harm come to me and no real harm come to the truck, I'm not going to make it worth the time to do it. But anyway, it's all back where it should be. There was a little bit of like a stream of blood right there, and that's it. I was surprised again that heavy of a thing didn't puncture him even more than it did. But I already cleaned it up a little bit, but it's right there in the middle. So this is the video on the run from hell. Occasionally you just get a run that has stuff happen to it continuously over and over. I'll have the vehicle on right now because I'm letting the condensation from my sleeping in there warm up, and it looks like it's ready to go. Pretty close. Letting the condensation, whatever we got, melt off, or however you call it. Before I get going, hopefully I'm not stuck. That's there. I originally, after that happened, I came over to the Loves parking lot because that's where the cop said to go, but it was too loud and noisy, so I came over just around the corner again by myself, which is probably not the best of ideas, but I figured in the dark, nobody but the private road people going that way are gonna know I'm here. And thankfully I made it through the night without no other huge problems. But run from hell, essentially, because it's just, you know, I'm starting to believe that some vehicles just have bad karma on them, give or take. You know, I hope nothing else happens, you know, and I pray to God above that nothing else happens, that everything, the rest of my trip is nice and dull and boring, because that's the way I prefer it. But who knows at this point? Chain link of evidence says otherwise. But anyway, that was the adventure so far with this truck. We're still gonna make it there, and eventually we'll make it there, I think, but it's just one thing after another. I just cannot believe that little teeny tiny little roller wheel thingy, which I didn't figure it'd be more than like 100 pounds, is apparently as heavy as like an anvil or something. It took 3 of us to get the thing up, and, you know, also could be the pallet and having to prop the pallet up around his leg and everything, but it was pretty heavy. Once we had it down and on the pallet, we could squeegee it back there. Me and the other cop pushed it back there without a huge issue once it was on the pallet, and it got strapped back down again. And I'm glad both the Mexicans and that cop didn't cut the metal banding for that pallet, because then there's no way I'd get it there without damaging it. But so far, from close inspection, there's a small scratch on the cab, the back end of the cab, from, you know, hitting it and hitting him and whatever. But not as huge of a thing. If you take a small scratch, if nothing else, I'm sure this rig's gonna take a hell of a lot more scratches than that. And it's going to a body shop anyway, so I'll just point that out to them. Above everything else, that happened. Anyway, that's my video for today. 15 minutes long. I'm gonna upload this. Like and subscribe, leave comments. I'll let you know if I have to make a part 2, if something more worse than that happens. Ring the bell on the videos to get notified on future videos. I had other videos from the trains and a couple other trucks I took and whatnot, but then my phone screwed it up or something. I looked the next day and it was gone. I don't know. I have to have enough phone storage problem right now. I'm running out of storage on the Google account, so I have to get rid of stuff in order to make videos, I guess. So I better get off this one before this one doesn't save. Like and subscribe, leave comments, and I'll catch you in a flip. Peace.